The working environment is rapidly changing the world over, with machine learning and robots taking over where human has always thrived. And the question that is now being fronted is, what is the future of work? This week on Inside Government, we are talking to the CEO of Kenya Innovation Agency, Dr. Tony Omwanse, on the future of work and the evolving landscape in the working environment. Thank you very much indeed for finding time to be with us here. First of all, give us a scenario of how the workplace is changing and what is the future of employees in an organization.
Thanks very much for having me, and it's always a pleasure to connect every so often. So in the context of the changing work environment, first of all, work gets done, but the how it gets done is what is significantly changing. The speed at which we are able to communicate using digital mechanisms, the very fact that we can even approve documents that are very confidential in a digital format, the very fact that we can work in an environment that is spread out from different locations, we can work at different times of the day and kind of commingling social and formal environments, commingling learning and working at the same time. The very fact that I can multitask and then can initiate multiple transactions at the same time because of the super power of computing has all changed the way we work. And it's only getting more and more sophisticated as we're now getting into more sophisticated layers of technology, like in, artificial intelligence for that matter, or machine learning, robotics, and so on and so forth. And that will only continue to change. But the point I've just hinted at the beginning is that work remains, but the how we work, which then brings in the speed at which we deliver an output, the convenience with which we deliver an output, the effort that we put into getting that output is what is changing, such that time is decreasing, speed is increasing, and so on and so forth, when you look at certain set of parameters.
When you look at human beings versus machines, who would you say is more efficient?
It actually depends on the school of thought. There are people who kind of say, you will never remove emotions out of a person, and you can't put them in a machine, or perspectives, or emotional intelligence for that matter, intellectual, IQ and stuff like that.
Well, but now it's happening. I mean, I saw in South Korea, they have created a robot that would cry if you cry, and would tell when you're laughing, and it would laugh with you. So we've gotten to a point whereby now it's possible to create robots that can really mimic your emotions.
Exactly. So the school of thought of the believers that technology will replace almost everything that a human being can do are the ones who are pushing that bar and actually demonstrating that a machine can probably have better emotional quotient than a human being. If you have a driverless car, the way it will navigate certain context might actually do better than a human driver. So for the believers of the power of technology are actually pushing it and demonstrating that the machine can actually do a better job virtually in anything.
Which jobs are at risk?
Interesting. I think if you look at jobs that are traditional and mechanical and procedural and predictable, those are very easy to replace. So let's say if I don't need the judgment, let's say I need to do some shopping, some online shopping, rather than go physically picking things, now a machine can do because of some predictable nature of that task. You give me your accounting, give me your budgeting, give me your procurement, give me your store management, and so on and so forth, data entry and so forth. If I can capture data and entries using a machine, then I can replace. So in other words, things that are generally repetitive tend to be very easily replaced. Now I can speak to a device and it'll capture what I was thinking and it'll type it out, all right? As opposed to, traditionally somebody had to write, and now somebody had to type, and then you go and scan it into a system. Now you moved into typing so that then I can work on a computer. Now I'll speak to it and it'll capture what I needed and I'll get the output. So as long as something is fairly predictable and does not require a lot of emotional judgment and so forth, then you rely less and less on human intervention.
We have seen, companies like Tesla trying to replace the work of drivers. We have also seen other companies in Japan replacing waiters and waitresses with robots, whereby you just need to punch a button, make your orders, and it will be delivered to you. How far are we as a country before we get to these kind of innovations?
That's a very interesting illustration that you've given. I mean, let's take Singapore, for example. Countries make certain priorities based on their context, and they push certain elements based on their context. So let's take Singapore as an example. I spent about a week last week or so. It's a small country, almost the size of a city. Now, population is about 4 million locals and 2 million diaspora who come in, internationals. Now, because of the geographical limitations, you can only have so many vehicles. Yeah. So what do then? They put pressure so that you don't import too many vehicles. Now, and the population growth, on average, if you get somebody who has 2 children, that's good. 3, that's rare. Now you see, because of certain regulations they've created, there's a lot of pressure on how the work environment is also going to operate. So you're saying, well, we don't have so many, the aging people and so forth. Based on that, they trigger certain efforts. So there's a lot of investment on R&D and then innovation and enterprise. So a lot of R&D to try and figure out how can we possibly do things better. And there comes machines, robots, and they rely less and less of human capital because that human capital is even not there. The cost of an individual, of hiring an individual, is significantly increasing. So if I got a robot that can potentially do this and I don't have to pay wage bill and annual increments and leave days and so on and so forth, then I'd rather go. So a lot of R&D goes in that direction and then try to create innovations and solutions that then address some of those things based on the intellectual property that has been established.
But it's also proper to say that, even in the Kenyan landscape, innovation and automation is fast catching up with us, because I want to give you an example of the Huduma Center, for example. Or let me take, for example, business registration process, whereby you needed to fill so many forms and then you take them to the state law office where they are verified by individuals. You're given another day to come, you meet individuals, you are certified and all that. The process has now been digitized. You just need to log in, enter your details, pay the amount that is needed, and then you'll be given a date by the computer when to check, and voila, you get your business registration certificate if you qualify. Now, can you try to imagine how many people have been phased out by that process? Yeah. And yet we are talking about creating jobs in this country.
Yes.
Are we reading from different scripts?
Yeah, and again, this is where different people, interpret differently. But if you look at it at macro level, there's a lot of value in automating. I just went to do birth registration. I went online, I provided the birth certificate notification, and in 2, 3, 4 clicks, boom, I was like, you will receive your birth certificate on this date, or the KRA PIN, for example. It used to be a very painful. I never used to look forward to it. But now it's something you just log in a few minutes, you have the PIN. After all, it's just a number. And then everything else is a printout or organization on the writing. Yes, you will replace certain people. But what you basically are doing from a macro perspective is that you are pushing people to do things that are more valuable. All right? So in other words, the way I use a human being and your brain, and that's why we talk about the knowledge economy and so on and so forth, is that I'm pushing you to do less and less of a manual and predictable task and do more of a knowledge, brain power kind of work. So, and then the second bit in terms of the value is that, you're creating efficiency. You're creating effectiveness. Look at how much I'm saving time, isn't it? I'm saving, you talk about business process engineering, for example. I'm saving time in this, at how long am I going to take to get this document? Yes, I've replaced someone, but that person, in terms of what they were doing, they could be used, you can capacity build them to do something else that is more valuable and generate more value to society. So if you look at the flip side also, if you're putting a lot of manual people to do, I've got to go and queue somewhere, and then I queue and so forth, look at the amount of time I lose. Look at the amount of the cost I'm paying. What's the opportunity cost? So if you look at a macro level, there's a net effect. Yes, these guys may be having a job, but I'm also losing because I would have been somewhere adding a lot of value to society. Mm-hmm. So the net effect is that you better automate this, push these people into a new layer of value of what they can do, and I also have more time to do more valuable things.
Look, I want to take you back to the early years of this century, and I'm talking about the year 2000. When mails or emails, became commonplace. We had companies like AOL. We had companies like Hotmail. And there were a lot of fears that finally the postman is on his way out. But somehow over the years, we still have the postman delivering letters, posting letters and so much, but albeit, on a lower scale. Is it possible for us to adopt technology, slowly and gradually without being disruptive?
Yeah, that's a good one. When people say business process reengineering, they talk about disruptive transformation, all right? It's like you really want to improve the efficiencies and effectiveness. Yes, it's a choice. There are counties, for example, if you bring this narrative home, if there are counties, when the new governors got into office, they said, from now on, no cash. Now, immediately within 2 days, you just have to figure out. And somehow mobile payments work, and you actually don't see cash happening. And what does it translate? Revenue collection goes up significantly. So yes, we can. I mean, there are counties that have made a choice that, we're going to go gradual. We don't want to disrupt a lot of people, because there's a negative effect of disruption, because you have to assess the situation. So yes, but remember, in many times this is private sector driven. And private sector is about business, it's about returns. So if I have an opportunity to introduce technology that will create a lot of opportunities for me, I don't think I care much about this gradual transition business you're telling me. If I can make as much money as I can now and create as much transformation as I can now, and that becomes my legacy, you won't stop me. So the technology as it evolves it just happens. I mean, people are pursuing opportunities every so often. So there is the pressure of the market forces versus the realities of contextualizing. Take an example. COVID comes in town. Yeah. It didn't give you a warning, right? Now you're a university who has to have Senate meetings, you have to have your university management meetings, your college meetings, and then you have your classes. If you wait to continue gradually, you're dead. So you better reform tonight, and tomorrow morning run your Senate online. So, other forces can simply make it not practical to go gradual.
Is it automatic that, once you embrace ICT, once you embrace machines, once you phase out the human fingerprints in a system, that it becomes automatically more effective? And I want to give you an example. When the Nairobi City County automated their parking payment system, I think it was in the year 2019 or thereabouts, the Nairobi Metropolitan Services reported that something very strange happened. Instead of their revenue numbers going up, they reduced. And so they had to reconfigure the whole system again. Are you guaranteed that you're going to get good results through automation, through deployment of machine learnings and so forth and so much?
Not absolute guarantee. Many things can go wrong in that process. Because first of all are we automating the right component of the process? Are we sure that that's the right thing we should be doing? So identifying the right process, and then designing very well the to-be state of how should this system be like. Third, the actual technological development, make sure that it is sound and waterproof. And then one important thing is that we continuously monitor, but probably what is interesting is the people factor. Let's take an example. I mean, if I am a matatu tout, and you're saying that you're automating the revenue collection, what people pay. So you create a system, you know, I'm not touching cash, right? So my job, if I don't buy into the philosophy and see what is it going to be for me, and you don't sort me out in that whole process, I will sabotage. I will always tell you the system is not working. All customers get into the matatu and I simply say, hii kitu haifanyi leo. Network problem, and so on and so forth. And then, yes, you've automated, but you're not succeeding.
And that brings me to the other question of change management. Because if change is not handled, correctly or properly, then it can have some very highly or serious negative ramifications. And so how do you ensure that even as you employ change within an organization, that you bring on board the people, the human capital that is involved on board to ensure there is success?
We are all driven by interest. If you think about the anthropological nature of human beings, is that we're driven by interest. You and I are here because of an interest. So and so is here because of an interest. You're motivated by something. Now, I need to look, and that there's a very good philosophy that says if you don't align the personal mission statement and the institutional mission statement and conjoin them, then you will have negative energy and easily experience resistance. So the first thing we need to start internalizing is what is your mission statement as an employee here, all right? Where are you trying to go? And I need to commingle these two mission statements so that as I introduce a change, as I introduce a transformation, you feel that that transformation is for your good.
There is something that you talked about. This is business process re-engineering. It's not a new concept. I mean, it has been around since the 1980s. Mm-hmm. But now companies are going back to the drawing board because of the changing nature and the fast evolving nature of the workplace and businesses. Tell me this, do you think this is the panacea to the disruptions being caused by technology?
Yeah, I mean, business process reengineering has been a concept for many years that helps people to think about a transformation that can happen. And then simply keeping in mind that what you're trying to get is more efficiency, more effectiveness. So you're looking at it from the outcome perspective. And I think that's just where kind of many people easily lose, that you could be transforming from the input perspective, and maybe you're trying to get outputs, but not the outcome. I think when we keep the eye on the outcome to say, we want to improve our efficiency, effectiveness, then we start asking ourselves, which processes do we need to re-engineer? Because it's about processes, all right? And I pick the right processes, and then I go through the process of identifying the current state, the state that it should be, and then redesign, implement, test, and iterate, and make sure that they serve the purpose, and then monitor and evaluate. And then from there I can begin to say, well, maybe next time I need to improve it again.
How different is it from incremental change philosophy?
So in the incremental change, I mean, you're saying that at some point in time, philosophically, you're almost referring to the same thing. But here, business process engineering, you're looking at the various steps that you need to go through. So it's kind of cyclic, but then over time, depending on what elements you are measuring, you're going up the value chain, okay? You're getting better as you go. Now, that narrative of improving is your incremental. So you might say, I'm going to re-engineer this process from beginning to end and complete, and on this variable, I'll have moved up in terms of the amount of time that people spend. It's 13 minutes. Next year, we're going to re-engineer the whole process. Remember, we're going to go through the whole cycle, and then on the variable that we are measuring, now we will move from 13 minutes to 12 minutes. So what we're doing over time, you're actually saving up on time or increasing your revenue or whatever, and you're doing it in small bits as you go, but within the small bits, you consider some business process.
Is there any evidence that Kenya as a country we have embraced business process reengineering or incremental change.
As a country, as a people, one of the things I have observed is that we are receptive to change, but also we have our own resistance. All right. So let's take an example. What is the last time you carried physical cash? All right. It's been a while. For me, cash is really troublesome. In fact, every time I have cash, I keep wondering, how do I get it out of my hands? All right. Because I'm so comfortable with electronic payments. It's neat, it's clean, it's safe. I mean, I don't have to worry about losing because I can track things as they happen and so on and so forth. And we've embraced. But when we were starting, even with the issues of ATMs, there was a lot of resistance. And, people have to be innovative in terms of how they market, private sector banks have to be innovative. But gradually people pick it up. Now, what I found interesting is that how quickly did people pick up to set up, mobile money agents? Very rapidly. If you see how many they were actually scaling very, very rapidly, I kept track on that. But then I do know, again, from a generational perspective, the younger people were a lot more comfortable signing up for mobile payments. But the older generation will be like, man, even the mobile phone, by the way. I have older friends and family members who resisted the element of a phone. They're like, this thing is probably going to spoil my ear, or it might just cause me cancer. All these perceptions, yeah? But then the younger generation, because they feel nothing, no effect.
They're not adaptive to change.
Yeah, and they're not more sensitive so much about health implication. They don't overanalyze and so on and so forth.
Companies are driven, or institutions are driven by two motivations when they are embarking on BPR. And one of them is to improve and increase efficiency, because as we know, human beings are not as efficient as machines. And number two is to improve on their bottom line. So then, how then do you achieve those two? By adopting BPR, robotics and AI, and at the same time retaining the workforce that, number one, made your work to be more inefficient and more costly.
There you go. So I think the question would be, how do you look at things? You look at them short-term, medium-term, long-term. And that's the essence of a strategy. If I have a strategy where I say, well, I've got 5 employees now, and my roadmap was going to have 10 in 2 years, or 50, whatever, 15 years, and I'm going to introduce some transformation in the way the systems operate, all right? Then I say, well, look, in the short term, for me to bring these new technologies and transformation, then there is going to be this disruption in the way people work. Then I say, well, look, for this kind of task, if we bring technology, we will get results faster. So you're going to sort out your efficiency, effectiveness, bottom line. All right. But then if I can take these people and say, hey, because of who you are, that's why we got here. And then because of who you are, we are going to get there. This part may be taken over by technology, but this other part, which is our growth, which is an area that we have not been exploring, I'd like you, for example, you're an accountant. And I say, well, look, what I'm going to do is that I'd like you to start looking into blockchain. Go and research this new area, and we want to introduce a new product or a service. All right? So I give you an opportunity to learn something new and create a new possibility for yourself. So I think you can achieve both, and that's where the strategy, an effective, comprehensive strategy of BPR is crucial.
With the fast evolving work environment, with machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotics, and so much, and technology which is evolving on a daily basis. I mean, last year's technology would be described to be obsolete today. So then how do you develop a strategic plan? How do you then come up with a 10-year plan? I mean, how do you plan for 10
You've just
years?
hit that question, because I've just come from a meeting where we are setting up our roadmap for developing a 10-year innovation master plan for the country. I think you're right that, with the rapid evolution, you can't predict tomorrow. I mean, to be very honest, I don't even know what our children are going to be doing 50 years from now. I can't even define that career. But what I can define is the equipping that I need to do for them to adapt to that reality when it happens. So in my strategy, I invest in equipping the people to adapt to the evolution. So I can say so capacity is always an issue as part of our strategy to ensure that we equip people for tomorrow. But the second point I will put in our context is the strategy has the element of long term and then medium term, but I have to psychologically be prepared to tweak as I go, as new technology evolves, and then we tweak again. So things become obsolete in my strategy. In other words, my strategy must have a strategy. Did you get what I said? My strategy must have a strategy. So you have a strategy on how I'm going to deal with my strategy as that realities change as I go forward. And I may not embed this strategy of a strategy within. In other words, I might not tell my staff, then it's not a strategy. I may not tell a staff, hey, we're going to go this way, but we'll change every week. No, it's just not practical. Then it can't make sense because they won't even know where they're changing to because they don't know how that tomorrow is going to look like. But then I have a strategy about the strategy such that when this happens, we will do quickly review and then we'll make it transient and then we'll look at how does it affect our institution and how does this give it competitive advantage. So strategy about the strategy.
Before I let you go, Dr. Aria, I know the government has set a target of upskilling, reskilling, state officers, with the relevant and up-to-date work skills that are needed to drive an emerging economies like ours. So how do you accelerate this transformation in an institution like government, whereby it comes after 5 years and new administration is in place with new priorities, with new targets?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very valid question on reality. We have to talk about the practical realities. First of all, this is exactly why we have the Ministry of Public Service. All right? Because it takes care of the capacity of the public's servants. And over the years, it hasn't changed whether the regimes have changed or not. Because we recognize that for government to serve the people, you've got to equip them, you've got to develop them, you've got to change the policies and so on and so forth. And within, by the way, the public service as a ministry, there is a component around innovation strategy. And even the skilling is done strategically over time. And ministries develop 10-year strategies or 5-year strategies that transcend. Remember, we don't create strategies that are aligned to 5 cycles of an election. Yeah, we actually, depending on where you are, you have a strategy for 5 years, and then you do midterm review, and then you proceed. Keeping in mind also, officers within the ministries really don't change. They are permanent employees. The only thing that will really change is the head, which is the cabinet minister and the PS. But many things generally don't change. Yeah. All right. So there's an element of continuity in that regard. And if you look at the services as they were, let's say 15 years ago, or how government officers operated 10 years ago, it's really different. I mean, even if that there are, and that's your incremental change, for example, in that case. Yeah, if you put in mind, maybe there can be some slow element at some point in time, but the general direction is going up. So I think it is practical, it's achievable, and some of the most effective officers I have found over time are actually in government.
Yeah, in government.
Absolutely.
Dr. Tony Omwansa, what is your message to the people watching this program and they're just wondering, so what will happen to my job in the future?
Good example. The head of state has guided that, we're digitizing operations. So this is happening almost everywhere. And some people start feeling anxious that maybe I'm going to lose my job. First of all, if there's one thing that differentiates us from animals, is the very fact that we can do a self-assessment. Mm-hmm. A dog doesn't know how to stand out of itself and do a self-evaluation. Now, on that note then, as a person, when I realize it's true that my role is going to get automated, I ask myself, how do I adapt to that reality? How do I reskill myself? How do I study something new? How do I build new capacities and rise up to the occasion and create new opportunities for myself? Even as we're talking about all this digitization, in many organizations you will find that not many people understand. And that in itself is an opportunity. So I can position myself as that person who understands what digitization really means, and then I become a champion and educate other people. So for every challenge we face, there is an opportunity. And that's what being a human being really means. That you can assess the situation, stand out of yourself, critique the situation, see the opportunity, capitalize, leverage, and there you are. You're better off than you were yesterday. How beautiful would it be that if I was the person who was typing last year, I become the person who integrates data from different sources, who designs a mechanism for reporting, that all of a sudden now my reports are even faster, so I can interact with a lot more people, a lot more systems, a lot more data. I have stronger capacity to process things. There is an opportunity to move up the value chain on the level of sophistication that we can handle because of the automation. So rise up, there is an opportunity.
Asante sana. Well, Dr. Tony Omonse is the CEO of Kenya Innovation Authority, joining us on Inside Government to help us understand what is the future of work, how the workplace is evolving, and the changes that are needed to help accelerate this much needed change. Well, my name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.